So welcome back, Greg Domville from DLC head office. Thanks again for being here. I always like to have an enthusiastic welcome because I think it kicks us off right. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You're going to tell us a little bit more about Velocity, and then we'll have some Q&A.
Sounds good. All right, like I just said, but now for the recording. Today we're going to finish off CRM based on what I'm going to present, and then we can just do questions and go from there. So last time, the last two sessions recap. Session one was just talking about the dashboard, so you guys make sure that your files are moving along in the right file statuses, because having a file in the right file status is the next session, the CRM, and the CRM will speak to files in the right file status, is primarily the funded status. And then so today we're going to finish off to say, hey, what about all my expert data? I got all this data in Velocity from my expert days. Can those be put into the CRM? And yes, they can. So a bit of admin to do so, but it's actually not a very hard task. It's just an admin task. So I'm going to show you using some demo accounts that I have, how to do that. And we'll share my screen and get started. But as always, unmute yourself, yell at me if you want me to slow down or ask questions, but we will have a question period at the end there. So I'm going to just start off with reminding you something. This isn't Velocity, this is the intranet. And I want to remind you that you do have access to all of your deals that you funded while at DLC. And part of this historical data merge into the CRM, you may want to have a nice handy list of all your funded clients. So I thought I would just quickly remind you to show you that. Everyone has this ability. You can go into your intranet and then you click this yellow button called reports. And this is going to be all your deals funded while at DLC. I can't speak for deals that funded prior to DLC, but if you funded a deal at DLC, this report page tells you this. And it's a good thing. It's got lots of cool stats on it. You can see it's got volumes and revenue and averages and your highs and lows and things like that. You can see your split of your lenders, where's your business going, which lenders has what, which is a kind of cool spread or pie chart. As you can see, I'm pretty Scotia heavy. But what I wanted to show you was in the reports tab, you hit this transactions button and you literally can just print off or export a spreadsheet and it lists all your funded clients.
Greg, is that for everyone or just the franchise?
Nope, every agent can go in there, click that report button, and they see their specific stats. You, Deb, can do that for the whole team, but every agent has their individual report access. So if I was to, go into this transactions tab and reports and exported it, it would show all my funded report or funded files for 2022, 21, etc. So I only show that to you because when I show you how to do this historical deal, it's nice to have a list right beside you so you can just say, yeah, funded, 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 didn't fund, etc. So that's pretty simple. One more time, it's just simply intranet, reports, and then you can go into your transactions and export every year that you want. Okay? So then let's now look at Velocity. Velocity. So the CRM is a completely different beast. So I'm in obviously Velocity, as you can see. And if I clicked on Velocity CRM, it shuts this down and goes into the CRM, which looks like this. But if you recall from last time, you can keep Velocity open. And if you want to go into the CRM, don't click on CRM, you right click on it and it opens up in a new tab. So then you can still have Velocity open where all your applications are and the CRM open at the same time. Now you don't need the CRM open though to do what I'm going to show you. I just wanted to remind you of that. So in Velocity, historical deals. One more time, historical deals means your deals that you did that weren't inputted into Velocity. So all you do is when you're in Velocity, there is on the black menu an historical deal button. Let's click that. And of course, give it a few minutes to load. And this is going to be all your expert data. And again, they are all there. If there's nothing there, but you do have expert data while at White House, then let us know, because the merge didn't happen, but it should be there. So this is showing me every single expert file that's under my name. As you can tell, all the application numbers don't have a V in front of it for Velocity. So that's a pretty easy way to denote that these are expert files. And the historical deals section is only expert files. So I got a lot of them. Got all the pages here, 165 plus pages. So what we're going to do to get these expert deals into the Velocity CRM is we need to do this. Number one, when you're in historical deals, let's grab all of your approved deals. So you can see application type is pre-approval and approval. I'm only going to speak to your approvals. So as soon as you just filter out the pre-approvals, now your list got a little bit shorter because now we're just looking at approvals. And I still have a lot. So then we're going to do this. It's a matter of taking all these expert deals. What status are they in expert? And we're going to change it to the Velocity status of complete. This is what Velocity needs a file status to be for the CRM to speak to it. Technically, it's got to be funded or complete, but I'm going to say just put it right into complete. Otherwise, it'll show up on your dashboard. When a file is complete, it means you've been paid on it and it's not on your dashboard. So we're going to go through all the expert statuses in a second, but no matter what expert status we're looking at, we're going to take those expert statuses that funded and change them to complete. So far, so good. So what are the expert statuses? Well, this is where the hodgepodge of franchises, some had a pretty good system, which I suspect you guys did, some didn't. And so these are all the statuses that a file could be in expert. And unlike Velocity, things didn't move on their own. You had to physically move it to certain statuses. So when you did a deal and when you started an application in expert, it's in progress, obviously, then it gets approved. And a lot of times brokers would take an approved file and just leave it in approved status, but it has to be noted as funded. So anyways, these are all the status levels of expert. So what we want to do is find all the files that actually did fund. So you just go through one status at a time, and it's always best to start at the bottom. If you just focus on your complete files, well, those meant funded in expert. So if you went expert status complete, it's going to show you if you had any files in complete status in expert, and I don't. So great, I don't have any. That bucket's done. So then you go to the next one, paid. That's another status level to show that you've been paid, which means you've been funded. So let's take a look at the paid statuses. Okay, so I have this example. There's 6 files that are in expert status paid, which should mean that they're funded. And this is where that report you would have beside you, if you don't remember, did Janice Anderson fund? Yes. Did Chad fund? Yes. So again, but because it's paid status, it's pretty much guaranteed that it did fund. But you may want to just a la carte go through each one and make sure it did fund, because once you have all these paid statuses on your screen, you got to check mark the ones that physically did fund. So if you're going to want to grab the whole lot of them, in this case, it's only 6. I just click this top checkbox, and they all are highlighted as I want to grab these ones. And then you also want to grab Castle, because the CRM won't speak to a file that's not denoted as Castle consent. Whereas if I didn't have the whole list, that's what I would just a la carte and go through it. And yeah, Janice funded, click, click. Chad didn't fund. It was just the wrong status. This one funded. This one funded. So whatever you want to do, the whole list or just a la carte based on your memory or your report. Point is though, one expert status at a time. Check mark the ones that physically did fund that you know funded, and then change it to complete, which I've done here, and you just go update. Done. They're now
Hey, Greg. Greg, why are we?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
as soon as I hit update, these now all get pushed into the Velocity CRM, and the CRM will start speaking to them. Yes, Sue.
Just wondering why we're checking boxes in 2 columns.
Because one column just denotes that, yes, you want to push this file into the CRM. The second column is to say that it's Castle compliant, which I know you guys, every file that you do, they've signed some sort of consent form. So it's a given that the Castle is in place. I'm not scared of Castle, maybe isn't the best word to say it, but Castle really speaks to you're not allowed to be emailing strangers, is my way of saying what Castle is. If there's any sort of relationship, regardless if they've signed a Castle form or not, you're good to go. So that's why, Sue, you just want to make sure that A, I'm check marking this file to get pushed into the CRM, and B, yes, they're Castle compliant. So you're almost always you're gonna always double click it.
Hey,
So-
Greg,
Yep.
I'm confused, which doesn't take much when it comes to this stuff. So I've got my change status to complete. And if I go expert status, so I've got like almost 3,100 files. And if I go expert status paid and I do update, there's nothing to show.
Okay, I think I'll answer that question when I go to my next bucket. It's easy when there's just a few on one screen, but I think I know what you're talking about. So let me see if this answers your question in a second. So again, always start at the bottom because these are already should be funded. And if you manually put it into a status of paid or complete, it's pretty much guaranteed funded. So that way you can just carte blanche the whole thing super fast. But if I was to go to the next status of confirmed, I don't think I have any of those. Next status of closed. Again, closed should automatically mean it funded. But if you look, Deb, I think this is what you're referring to. My closed bucket, I have 103 in there, but you got to do 1 page at a time.
No, I got none.
So that means
So
you don't have any.
the only time it shows me I got like 3,100 and that's in all status. But if I go paid or confirmed, there's nothing. And if I go in progress, I still have the same number of files. So, but I know that a lot of these have closed and confirmed. So I'm not sure, like, have they already moved over or?
So Greg, I think this is where my next question was going to be, and Deb beat me to the punch. If this has already been done, will they appear in here again when you try to do this?
No.
Right.
So if you've already done this exercise, exactly, they're not going to be here because you've already moved them from one status to the other. So that could be it.
Fine,
Yeah,
then.
this has already been done. You're ahead of the game. You've already done this task.
Well, aren't I a hero?
So stop talking so the rest of us that haven't done this can get on to their day.
Did you just tell me to stop talking?
Never.
Are you going to be at MPC next week?
No. Yes, of course.
Okay.
I'll be there. Okay, let's move on. So close status, exact same thing. Again, I'm making the assumption if a file is in closed status, it's pretty much funded. So then you just carte blanche the whole list. And I hit complete or update, I should say. But that's only page 1. Then I got to go on to page 2 and do it again. And then page 3 and do it again. So it's easy when the statuses at the bottom are paid, closed, complete, because these are all funded. But here's where it happens is very common. Many agents have it in ready to close and don't do anything with it. So this is where you're going to start to think, okay, did this actually fund? It was close to funding because it was ready to close status, but did it actually fund? Actually, Michael Simmons blew up at the finish line and didn't fund. Oh, but Colby did. So you're just going to hunt and peck and choose the ones that funded and then update. And then move on to the next bucket, accepted. And this is where, as you get closer to the top, this is where you'll have a dog's breakfast of files. But it depends on how diligent you've been in your historical data. So it's just a matter of simply going through each expert status at a time, identifying which ones that you know funded, and then moving it to complete and update. So that's depending on how well you kept your data up to date, that could be an easy task or a daunting task. I probably wouldn't go back more than 5 years, but because if it's a mortgage that funded more than 5 years ago, well, what status, like what CRM would speak to it? It's already been renewed, or on all the anniversaries are come and gone. So I would really only focus on files in the last 5 years. But again, the higher you go up, the more daunting this task can become. So once you do that, you have all your files put into quote funded status. Then I would do it again. I would start again, and whatever, I'll start doing all the statuses again. But this time, if they're still in here, that means it didn't fund. It means you didn't note it as being funded. So you might as well then change it from accepted status that never funded to canceled. And then same thing, anything left in here after you've done the funded ones should just be ones that didn't fund, and then you can just cancel them and then update. So then this exercise is taking all of your expert deals and putting them into 2 buckets. Funded, or I should use the right terminology, complete, which means the CRM will speak to it, and then canceled, which means it never happened. And then when this exercise is done, easier said than done, as Deb alluded to, this whole historical list should be empty, because what else is left? It's either funded or canceled. And this is a must if you want the CRM to speak to your expert files. One more time, historical deals, make sure it's set to approvals only, just to make your task easier, and then go through each expert status to decide if it funded or not, which is denoted as complete. And then once that's done, everything left over will be files that didn't fund, so you can cancel them. You still have access to the file. Don't get scared by the word canceled. It'll still be in there. You can search for it. It's just not going to be clouded up with did it fund or did not. All your data now in Velocity is in the right status, complete or canceled. So this is a must. Depending how busy you are, this could be a big task or a small task. Depending how good you were with your data management before, this could be a big task or a small task. I know my clients, I don't do near the volume as some of you do, but I know most of my clients just by memory, just off of the last 5 years. So I can just go through this quickly. Oh yeah, he funded, he funded, he funded. But if you don't have that memory, then that's where that report was at the beginning I showed you, where you can print off and have it. Did it fund? Go into the report and it'll be there. That's easy. So any questions about this task? Or was I too not clear or too fast? Most people groan at first thinking, oh, this is going to take forever. And then after a couple of weeks, they call me and says, that wasn't so bad.
Am I allowed to talk again or no?
Of course you are, Deb. Okay. Oh, you're just testing me? You don't have anything to say? Okay. But this is also, like, as it's a bit slower right now, this is the perfect time, because the last 2 years we've been crazy busy and no time to do this stuff. But now everyone's like, oh, I'm slow. Well, perfect. Now you got some time to spend on your database and clean up and all those projects that you wanted to do. So it's kind of a good thing that we have maybe are a little bit slower, because we can now invest the time without having to carve into our workday. Okay. No questions on this then. Pretty straightforward. Pete, anything from you?
I was just going to say that anyone that's a new broker, you obviously won't typically see this because you haven't probably put any deals into expert. Anyone that has had expert deals, like Deb noticed that they wouldn't necessarily appear. I did do a lot of pre-work when we made the switch to Velocity. So I did a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff. So people might have actually not even had to do this because I kind of did it behind the scenes anyway.
Good job.
But yeah, so if you still do have deals that show up here, typically like when we had the files that were in expert, I would always mark them down as paid or complete. Those are all deals that funded. So yeah, so you'll find them paid and complete. That's where all the finished deals will be.
And then that's super easy then, because that's where a true good team does. And then it's super easy. Just grab your expert pays. As Pete said, that means they're funded. So just highlight, update to complete status. Should be super easy. A lot of franchises don't have the Pete's of the world, and their data is just a mess. And more than half their data is in progress. Well, that's everything. And that's a big task. So pump your tires, Pete and White House. Like, that's awesome to have someone to help you out with that kind of stuff. And that's the way it should be done. All right, there's historical deals. That was the last piece, pretty easy. So then, do we have any questions about what we did last few sessions? Have you guys tried to go in there and make templates and things like that? Perfect.
I have a question, Greg, but it's not concerning the CRM.
Okay.
I just want to know, for some reason, sometimes when I do the client experience, I send off to the client, they fill out their app, and then they upload their documents. I had one the other day. I ended up with 3 files for this client. So I need to know, A, how to merge them. And why is that happening? I can't figure out what he did.
Honestly, I've heard that a couple times, and so I've called Sati Brar, who is our great Newton rep now, and she couldn't answer why it's happening, but she said email her and she'll figure it out. So shitty answers, Jane. I can't answer the question, but it's common. It's happening. What is the client doing to make that happen? Now, is it multiple clients or one person? Like
I've had it before, not for a while.
Yeah.
But is there a way for me to merge it into one? I thought I saw a merge
I don't know
button.
how, but there is.
Okay.
And again,
I'll go on one of the learning videos then, no worries.
Well, just email like sati.brar@newton.ca. She's our newest rep, and she's BC based, and she is a go-getter. Like, it's not the Velocity experience that we may have had before where you email someone and it's crickets. She'll email you back instantly, call you, and either tell you what to do or she'll get it done for you. Awesome resource, guys. Sati, S is in Sam, ATY .brar@newton.ca. You may know that name because she used to be our first Canadian title rep. She's now over at Newton, and she's awesome.
I had a question.
Yep.
If I needed to have somebody have a look at my templates, making sure my timing is right. So, as example, I've got closings that I originally said I'd send out automatically 2 days after closing, one of those, thanks for sending me, ask for the referral, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I need to check to see if they're actually being sent out, if there's no approval needed on my part. I wanted to make sure, but I asked her also about just checking the templates, make sure I got the logic down right.
Just to clarify your verbiage, you're meaning the campaigns, not the templates. It's the campaigns yes. So you can do that. I can do it as well. I would need your login passwords to go in there and audit your stuff, but I'd be happy to do that. Sati doesn't need your passwords because she is Newton, so she can just go in there and do it. So whatever you're comfortable with, Chris. But not that I want to bombard her, but I would recommend going to her just because it'd be nice to meet her and get to know how great she is.
Okay.
But that aside, I'd be more than willing to audit people's CRMs just to make sure that they set it up correctly. That's pretty easy for me to do.
All right. Well, then I'll send it to you, and thank you for that. That's good.
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah. So text me your username and password. I think text is a bit safer, and then I can go in there and take a look.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Let me just do one more thing then, since there's not a lot of questions, but ask me questions if you have something. Back to the CRM. So what Chris was saying about the logic, let me go into the CRM and just kind of show you. I didn't really go into the logic of the CRM because I just said, hey, it's pre-made, just trust me, it works. But I think it's important to know the logic. So maybe you do want to make some changes, you know how to make those changes. So if you're open to that, let me just kind of show you. And again, I'm that kind of guy where, yeah, I'll trust you, Greg, that's working, but I still like to know. So if you're curious, let me show you. So again, I'll piggyback what Chris was talking about, logic and things like that. So just to remind you, step 1 is to build the templates, but step 2 then is to attach those templates to the pre-existing campaigns. So you don't have to do anything, but let me just show you the logic. And then I'll show you if you wanted to change the logic. For example, maybe I think I use this as an example, or I'll use you. Chris just said, I want a thank you email to go out 2 days after it's funded. Or I believe the campaign set to go 7 days after funded. So if you wanted to change that logic, I'll show you. Or another example is all the pre-made campaigns only speak to funded deals. Well, maybe I want something to go out earlier in the process. Like for example, when it hits accepted status, which means the client signed a commitment, that's a kind of a cool milestone. Maybe that's when you have something go out. So you can just simply go into an existing campaign and just change the logic, as Chris called it, or the rules. So let me show you. Go into the CRM, again from Velocity, just launch the CRM, and then go into campaigns. And you need to create a campaign. Oh, actually, no, I'm gonna go back up, I was wrong. If you've already made the campaigns, you would go into an existing campaign. So I'm gonna go into the anniversary campaign. So this is the logic. So this logic is, it's gonna speak to borrowers, not referral partners. It's gonna speak to all applications that is an approval. Obviously the logic is not, so that would be silly to change it to is not. So it's only gonna look at approvals, not pre-approvals. And it's good, this particular campaign, this anniversary campaign, is gonna speak to deals that are at least funded status. At least means funded, and then when your payment shows up or your commission shows up, it's complete, which is beyond funded. So it's funded or greater. That's why it's at least funded. If you wanted to change the trigger to say, hey, I want this, maybe wouldn't make sense. I want this campaign to go out at the accepted status. Well, then you just change it from funded to accepted. And now this campaign would trigger at this status level versus the funded status level, or funded status level. So this is the first set of rules, is to who it speaks to, borrowers, approvals only, and what status. So let me just go back, and I'm gonna, did I make one? Closing campaign. Close. Yeah, here's a closing campaign. Better example. So I got a closing campaign that by default is set to funded. But this closing campaign is the one that, the way this example was set up, was one of the campaigns was to ask for a testimonial. And I think I shared that story where a broker switched it that, hey, I want to start asking for testimonials the day they sign the commitment. That's the happy day. So if you like that, then you can change this closing campaign to accepted status. And that means that they have accepted it. Then you can change it to who do you want to speak to? So this closing campaign is pre-built to speak to purchases. And then there's a separate one for refinances. If you want to just do them both at once, well, as you can see, the rule is approvals, whatever status you want. I'll just keep it funded, for example. And it's only speaking to purchases. If you want to add refinances into here, you just add a condition. And then now the application purpose is refinance. Add a condition. Application purpose is ETO, etc. Right? Application purpose is switch transfer, or whatever you want. So this is probably the most common one where you may want to change the rules. The closing campaigns, there's two of them. There's a closing campaign for purchases and a closing campaign for refinances. I don't want to double my work, so I don't care what the proper transaction is, a purchase or refinance, I just want to turn on one campaign. So you can go into that purchase campaign and do what I just did. Change, just add conditions and throw in your refinances. Application purpose is refinance. Anything that would speak to a refinance. And then going down to the campaigns, this is kind of what Chris was alluding to. There's a campaign 7 days before, and I'm just going to totally go on a tangent. I don't like that campaign, so I'm going to remove it. There's an email that goes out on the closing day. I don't want to use that one, but these are the ones I'm going to use, and it's set for 7 days after the closing date. So if you wanted to check out the rules, so again, there's the main rule to the whole category. But if you wanted to check out the rules for this one campaign within it, there it is again. Deal status is at least funded or waiting to payment, or you can change it to accepted. And to Chris's point, he wants his going out 2 days after closing, not 7. So just change the 7 to 2. So within each and every campaign, there's the high level, who is it speaking to? And then within the campaigns, there could be multiple stages, it's called, and you can change the rule being, you can change the status level or the trigger, as I call it, and you can change the date. The logic is pretty common sense when you stare at it for a bit. Like, what are the options? I can send, closing date has occurred 2 days ago, or I can change it that the funding date has occurred, or most of the rules are pretty straightforward if you just kind of think about it. It's all about picking the trigger and then what is that trigger date? Has occurred, has not occurred, that kind of stuff. So it's a bit a rabbit hole when you start to go down to how customizable these are. I generally say don't consume your brain waves yet. Just build the templates and turn on the pre-existing campaigns. But if you have an idea, God, I wish my CRM did this. I want them to start speaking to people at this stage or this type of transaction, you can build it just by playing around with the rules within each campaign and stage. But again, I can help you on a case-by-case basis. So that's all I'm going to do, Chris, is I'm going to go into all of your campaigns and just check out, pretend this is Chris's campaign dashboard. I'm going to go into each one and just see how you set the rules and make sure it's pointing to where you want it to point, days and status level. I don't want to say it's that simple, but it is that simple. It's just a matter of getting that in your brain. But I think for the most part, the average of agents don't change anything. They just turn the existing campaigns on by attaching their template and turning it on. All right, what else? Crickets.
Greg, I have to say the one interesting thing that I have noticed, and we talked about this way back in the Filogix expert days, is if you don't find that your campaigns are going out when you think they should be going out, I would check within your application the interest adjustment date.
Right.
Because it tends to override any other dates. It is the interest adjustment date becomes the date that it thinks that is the closing date. I've seen this in a few applications that have come through from Filogix days, and then they're just not campaigning properly. We'll go back and we'll look at them, and they'll typically have an interest adjustment date that's like 2013 or 2017 because it was a copied file. And that seems to make the difference on whether or not it gets picked up through the CRM. It was the same in Filogix, and it is happening in Velocity as well.
The importance of data integrity is everything. And so it's so easy to get busy and moving along, and then next thing you know, 5 years have passed and your data's a mess. So because there's lots of little nuances like Pete just said. So if you are a bit slower right now, or maybe just starting and you got time, this is the time to train yourself to be diligent on your data's integrity. Closing dates is important. Interest adjustment dates usually change appropriately, but they could not. And file statuses. Those are the two main things, dates and statuses. Take the time to close off your files and you'll love yourself. And if you've never done that, again, bookmark a weekend and just do it. You'll love yourself for doing it. It may be daunting, but it's not. And I will say one more thing to Chris's point. There is no way of seeing what's sent out. There is no sent box in the CRM unless you're having it come to you first. Remember, there's that approve stage. If you have them all coming to you first, there's your peace of mind that, yeah, they're going out. But there is no sent box. It's coming, because that's a huge thing. You want to physically see what's been going out. Huge ask by everyone, and it's coming. That's a big priority. So I would guess that would be the next stage of the CRM, is to have a sent box, for lack of better description, so you can physically see, yeah, it is working, because we're missing that. Every CRM we had before, and most CRMs out there, have some sort of sent box. So that's coming. For now, trust that it's working, or just make sure it's going to you first, which I think is a good thing to do, except for the birthdays. The birthdays will blow your machine up. That's a lot of emails coming to you every single day, but everything else, maybe a couple a day. And that usually will spark some memories too. Oh my God, there's an email from Bob for a 3rd year anniversary. I haven't talked to Bob in a long time. There's your reminder to give Bob a call. So the CRM is 2-pronged, is to communicate to your clients on your behalf, but if it's coming to you first, it could be a good reminder to do your call list. And on that note, lots of conversation again, how it's slowing down a bit. Some brokers are getting quite worried. Well, it's time to go old school. If you are not as busy as you used to be, start calling your people. And I think we've gotten out of that habit because we didn't need to. The phone just rang on its own. Now maybe it's quiet. So who do I call? Anyone and everyone. But if you use this, if the CRM's working, you'll have a couple of names in your approved bucket every day. Okay, I'll call these guys, and make that your call list. But the ones that have battled this slow down period, like the big brokers of our industry, they're old school, and they're time blocking 9 to 1. All they're doing is dialing until they have whatever 4 good conversations. And we've kind of gotten away with that. So licking stamps and handwriting notes and just calling, and the CRM can help you with that.
Cool. Good advice.
All right. Yeah, this is a good time to just share best practices. Again, there's a lot of people that just have been blessed over the last couple of years. So if it's slower, time to dust off your old school skills again and talk to people. And if you're worried, so are consumers. So this is the most important time to call them. And I'm a bit more blunt, but I don't panic. It's okay. Like, relax. It's okay. Rates are going up, but they'll come back down again. So we can still help you. And the DLCU series that we just finished, those online back to work series, they're all around that. How to just get back to talking to our clients and sparking conversations and things like that. So if you didn't watch those, they're recorded. Go check them out. There was some really cool content. All right.
Cool.
We'll call that a wrap then.
Well, thank you, Greg. Really appreciate all your insights and everything. It's great. There are obviously some learning curves. It's a huge learning curve in the CRM, but do fiddle around with it. Like Greg says, you won't learn it unless you give it a try. And again, we've talked about having a test file that you can just kind of email out and use that as your tester. But we've seen some quirks. I know Brent he's tested some stuff himself, and for some reason his picture isn't coming through. So we're trying to work on various things through the support network, but I'm sure there's some kinks to be worked out.
Technology and kinks go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I'm glad Sadie Barr's name came up, because again, I'm not being biased. She truly is a wonderful person and a hard worker. And I think Newton was lacking that. So they have great people on the streets, and I got a pretty good handle on things. And Pete seems pretty techy. So there's lots of help. Don't procrastinate. Procrastination is a killer. It's my worst attribute by far. So don't procrastinate.
I had another question.
Yep.
In respect to autopilot, I use that primarily for the newsletter.
Yes.
Is that something that I can gravitate or translate over to Newton for the CRM on that?
Let me be blunt. It's already in it, but don't. It's a pain in the ass. The newsletter, and I'm blunt because it makes no sense. An autopilot, I'm still a fan. I still promote and use both all the time. Autopilot is so easy to drop in a group of names and send them a message. The newsletter, to Chris's point, is automatic. As long as the names are in there, it's happening. The newsletter, Chris, is in Velocity CRM, but you got to manually every month go in there, build your template, grab your audience list, like it's 10 steps and push it out manually. No one's going to do that. So keep doing it, man. Will it eventually get better? Yes. But for now, it's nowhere near what autopilot is for that capability. So keep using autopilot for that regard.
Autopilot's not going to get taken away, is it?
Hell no.
No, okay. I wasn't sure if it was like going to be decommissioned at some point.
Did you guys see that if you're on the DLC agent Facebook page, a few months ago, there was a chat going on about one of the newsletters that went out in today's rising rate world, and it kind of just talked about rising rates and, hey, your mortgage professional can do rate holds. So if you got a refinance, renewal, or purchase, call me, I'll do a rate hold. Well, refinance and rate hold, what? And agents' phones exploded with people saying, I want a rate hold, I want a rate hold. Well, you can't really do a rate hold on a refinance, but anyways, the point was, it wasn't a mistruth by any ways, but it just sparked a shit ton of conversations. So there was this chat going on the agent Facebook page, and a lot of agents were kind of griping about, hey, I don't think I agreed with this newsletter. And everyone started chiming in and saying, yeah, I was getting tons of calls, And I jumped in and said, wait a minute, everyone's saying the same thing here. The newsletter went out and you got a ton of calls. Isn't that a good thing? So whatever the reasons they're calling you, that's a good thing. And that just kind of showed that the newsletter works. People are reading it. And maybe the topic was a bit edgy or a bit scary or whatever. If it made phones ring, good. So
hey, Greg, in regards to that for refinance, it may be just the terminology, but I've done clients in here and I said, okay, let's just secure the rate, do the refinance because you're not quite ready for it. So I'll secure the rate for 120 days and then they'll do the refinance at the end.
Well, and that was part of our rebuttal too. But then people are saying, well, if I don't fund it, it hurts my closing ratios. And well, you just manage your client. If they're not ready, then you're not going to do it. But if they're calling you to refinance, they're ready to do something.
Yeah.
So great point, Jeb. It's just not really.
Got to learn how to close the deal.
Old school. Like we are.
Ask for the business.
People forget that we are all salespeople. This primarily is a sales job, not a numbers job, not a mortgage professional job. We're salespeople. So it's our job to sell the client into what you think is best for them, be it whatever Deb said, rate hold or not, or take these calls. So put stuff out there that may spark your phone to ring. And those newsletters work. So long answer to your question there, Chris, but I still say keep the newsletter going in autopilot, still use autopilot for those one-of messages because the CRM can do that, but it's just a whole bunch of clicks. So it's easier to use both platforms and try to do that all in Velocity. Eventually, Chris, yes, everything that autopilot does for its simplicity will be there, but no rush.
I've got to start getting more aggressive with the autopilot, with the social squares and the seasonal messaging and all that. I mean, all that stuff is accessible in the scripts and everything. So
it's just disciplining yourself. Every month, you're just gonna discipline yourself. Like have a post-it note or your phone goes off with an alarm every month on the 15th. Push something out. Talk to your people. You should be on social media every day, and you should be emailing your people. Friends, clients, family, whatever, once a month, in addition to the newsletter. Just a matter of building that habit.
Yep.
And I like the word you use, aggressive. It is aggressive. Sometimes you got to be firm and blunt, but you also got to entertain them. You don't want to piss off your clients, but fear is sex is the number one form of marketing. Fear is the second. Like think of some of the commercials you've seen. A lot of them are doom and gloom, like fuck, you're dead if you don't buy this drug. Or fear is a formal form of marketing. So it's kind of fear time. Call me now or you're going to miss out on today's rates because they're up tomorrow and you're fucked. Fear of missing out, right? So this is just FOMO, right? It's okay to scare your clients.
Yeah, I've already started to look at how I'm going to integrate It's Time into my ads.
Yeah, interesting, right? That's, I won't. Do we want to talk about that? I got 10 minutes left. I don't know if we should or should not, but hey, we got a new spokesperson. If you're an MMA fan or not, that was a big debate at head office. Gary Morris is a big MMA fan, so he wanted this guy to be our spokesperson. So many people aren't MMA fans or opposed to it. But again,
Wait, are you saying that what Gary Morris wants, he gets?
weird, right? He actually had a lot of pushback from Kate, like a lot. And they kind of met in the middle. But
Well, it's aggravating, just like what's his name was. So, it's going to be retained somewhere along the line. Hopefully, the association is more positive than negative.
yeah, if you're just the perfect example, Chris. Like not everyone loved Don Cherry, especially in the last few days of his career. But we're still known for being like it's just bad press is sometimes good press. So it's time, as Deb said, is our new slogan. It's our new spokes guy, and it's all about it's time. It's time to call White House and talk about the shit that's going to hit the fans or not. Like it's time. Call me or you're screwed. I'm very blunt, and I think people respond well to that. So don't be afraid. So, anyways, there you go. Good chat, Chris. Autopilot still is. CRM is not to replace Autopilot. I use them both. I use CRM strictly to speak to my clients' mortgage milestones, and I use Autopilot for everything else. It's a great way of memorizing it.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't use any of the programs.
Liar.
I know.
That post you did, Deb, I'll say it again, that you threw on the Facebook page a couple of weeks ago about you jumping into Velocity. Wow, did that ever go a long way?
Why?
Well, just because it was such a real, honest, is testimonial even the right word? It's like, no one taught me. I jumped in. It was shitty at first. I figured it out. Now I love it.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you got to rip that Band-Aid off and just feel the pain for a few weeks, months, and it'll come.
Well, you know me. I'm very shy, not very vocal.
Yeah, I know.
Stubborn.
Stubborn. Yeah, don't state my opinion at all.
Never.
No.
All right, folks, we'll call that a wrap. Pete, thanks for having me back once again.
Thank
I
you.
hope this isn't the last. I'll keep coming back, and I always got something to talk about, even if it's just let's get on and banter and share ideas and swear and tell jokes and just rah, rah, rah.